This is the Cool Running Podcast. On this episode, Ben and Roberto are joined by ultra endurance athlete Rhys Jenkins.
Here we go, the first ever episode of the Cool Runnings Podcast, and we are joined by none other than Rhys Jenkins. He doesn't need any introduction. However, if you've been underneath a rock, this man goes out on some unbelievable and crazy challenges. He's got the fastest known time for the Wales Coastal Path, and recently he's set out a new record running the length of Great Britain.
Thank you so much for coming on the Cool Runnings Podcast, man. We're so happy to have you, such a legend. One of the first things I'd like to ask you is how this monster of an ultra runner was started.
God, man. Christ, that's going back a few years now. 2006, I started running properly in terms of I started liking it and sort of used it to get fit. And then in 2010, I jumped in at the deep end and ran across America, 2,000 miles with my best friends, my brother. And we just didn't know what the hell we were doing. We lived from hotel to hotel each night, didn't know where we were staying to. It was crazy.
Nah.
I'm surprised nobody died on that trip. But we made it to 2,000 miles. We enjoyed it as much as you can. And I learned a lot from there. So I'd say 2010 is when I started ultra running properly.
That's epic, man. That's absolutely epic, man. I think what have I done? I've done a 32k run once. That's my longest, and I just felt like an absolute beast. You know, I can't even think about the distances that you're running. You know what I mean?
I know that Rob's just described you as being a monster of, an ultra endurance athlete. Now, you're talking about running across, the whole length of America. I'm really intrigued to find out who planted that seed to make you and others think this is a good idea.
You know what? So when I started running in 2006, I met my best friend, who now he's my best friend. He's my best man as well, Rusty. We were working at summer camp, and he got me into running. And then 2010 came around, and I was still quite young and naive, and I wanted an adventure. And we just got chatting like you guys are chatting now. And he'd been planning a run. I said I wanted this adventure without knowing what he'd been planning. And it was just one of those things that it just it connected. And we didn't know whether we could do it. Didn't have a clue in the world whether we could do it. We managed to blag Puma as a sponsor. They gave us a load of kit. It was just unbelievable.
Nice.
But yeah, I think it was born from just the sense of wanting an adventure and seeing whether you could go further. And like you said, Rob, about 32k. That feeling you get when you go further. I'm not fast, but my buzz comes from going further than I have done before and pushing the body that way. And it's just you've experienced it yourselves, guys. It's just something which it's hard to describe until you've done it. And then you get that bug, and then you want to go back for more, and you forget all the bad bits and remember the good bits.
Yeah, I can resonate with what you say. I can't resonate with running those kind of distances. Done a few marathons myself, but it's sort of like that carrot dangling in front of you scenario. It's you just keep chasing it. You never quite get there, but I can resonate with what you say, Rhys. You just want to push your body. I don't know if I'd ever push it to the limits you have, but I just want to congratulate you. Just while we having a chat with you on the Three Peaks Joggle, I think that's such a massive achievement, and you've managed to also get an FKT as well, haven't you?
Oh, thank you, mate. It means a lot. It's something which I didn't know if I could be able to do it. I obviously did the Wales last year, and it was just ever since that point, I was just sort of looking at a map and trying to figure stuff out in my head. And I've always wanted to run the length of the UK, and then I've done the Three Peaks before, in a car, and I was just well, can it be done? Can I do it? And my wife sort of says this thing whereby it's when a seed is planted in my head, it sort of eats away at me until I do it. And with the Three Peaks Joggle, it was a case of that seed was planted probably December time last year. And we had this window of opportunity to go for it. And it was a very small window because we do events and everything. So we had an event at start of July, and we had an event at the start of August. So we had a really small time frame to get the job done. And the only way I could get it done was by breaking the record as well. So it was just something which put that added pressure. I had to get home for all these events. But like the 3-piece joggle, it's just, for me, I'm so proud of myself for doing it. I'm proud of Keris, my wife, who was the main crew throughout. But man, it is a disgusting challenge in terms of you are facing traffic for like 80% of the time. It's really like a real mental game as well as physical of it.
Yeah, that's what I always wanted to know. Yeah, so when you're doing these long ultras, yeah, what creeps into your mind? Yeah, what sort of things creep into your mind that make you want to stop, that make you feel like, you know, I've had enough? And you know, what sort of things?
Similar again, I'll go back to your 30k thing. I guess people have like these mental blockers in their head. Like a marathon, it seems to be it's an incredible challenge, but it seems to be that blocker for people. They get to a marathon, they get to 26.2, and then like the body goes and like they get across the finish line. But I think with ultra running, it's just a case of when you are knackered or ruined, you just take a step back and you try to just normalize the situation. So with like the 3-peaks joggle, it was a case of day to day, but within that day to day, there was checkpoint to checkpoint. So I was never staring down the barrel of a 1,000-mile run. It was always like 10 miles, 10 miles, 10 miles, 10 miles. So you know, it's that sort of, you break it down into manageable chunks, stuff which you're used to processing. And one of the things we did do was, so with my training, I get up early and I usually get up before breakfast so I don't eat. And it's something we incorporate into the challenge. So when I start off in the morning, I was putting down like 20 miles without actually eating a thing, just drinking loads of fluid. And then when I get to the checkpoint, my body's like, oh, you're used to eating now. It's usually like lunchtime. So then when you get there, you're hungry, you put the fuel down and you get going. Like most people would be like, that's suicidal, not eating before running that distance. But for me, it works. And I guess it's a sign that every runner is different and different things work for different people.
Yeah, I agree with that. And, you know, if we touch on the subject of mindset, you know, everyone's got a different coping mechanisms or various mechanisms that work for them. Now, I'm sure that you've got your secrets, Rhys. But one thing that I heard of a friend of mine who's, you know, working towards running 100 marathons is he used to work, you know, as a businessman, long haul flights. And he said, well, if I can sit cramped up in a seat for, you know, sometimes over 12 hours, you know, connecting from, for example, you know, like the US and heading over to Dubai. You know, he said, if I can sit in a seat for that long, you know, period of time, then I can do an ultra. And that's sort of like the mantra he has. So I don't want you to share any, you know, inner circle secrets, but what is it that clicks into play for you when your body's starting to tire, you know, your legs are cramping and so on?
You know what, man? I don't have any like inner circle secrets like when it comes to tackling stuff like this, because I'm always learning. I'm learning off other people, and I make my own fuck ups now and again. You know, you have to learn from your mistakes. But when it comes to this mindset, my coping mechanisms, bring it back to normality. So similar to what your mate does, he puts it into perspective. Again, with the sort of endless miles, you got 24 hours in a day, and when my job is just running, you focus on that because everybody has a day job and usually it's about 8 to 9 hours a day. So if you normalize it and you try to think about it as a job in a way, that sort of helps process it. But when times do get dark and you do get knackered, you've probably heard it before, but like having a reason why and like understanding it properly. So like having it in a way. So I'm quite an emotional runner and I let my emotions sometimes get the better of me when I'm running. Sometimes I use them perfectly and it fires me up and I can go faster or further. And it's just one of those things, that reason why. And for me, usually that reason why is for charity. And it's not usually, sorry, it's always for charity. Because it gives you, in a way it's selfish, but in a way it gives you that extra reason not to give up. So you can think about those people you're running for, think about the reason you're out there. And the Wales Coastal Department, I was running for, to raise awareness around child abuse and to help in the fight to prevent that. Because unfortunately, as a child, my wife was abused, and it's something which we both support each and every year. And you imagine, I've got Keris there with me each and every day. She's my main crew. She's reminding me every day I see her. And I have to go 10 miles before I see her, and I get that instant kick and the reminder why you're going. And again, it's just always wondering about that reason why. And if you can have that reason why and make sure it's stronger than that reason to give up, you usually get the job done.
Yeah, and it's massive what you've done. It's is it over £5,000 you've raised for? Is it the Lucy Faithful Foundation?
That's the one, man. It's Lucy Faithful Foundation. They do a campaign, Stop It Now, UK and Ireland. And it's just something whereby, like, they were showing us the stats of, like, how their hotline has been inundated since COVID kicked off. And obviously people being locked in houses and stuff like that. Well, not locked in, but, you know, with all the rules and everything. And it's just something whereby they don't get a lot of people fundraising for them. And they even like, you sure you want to fundraise for us at the start? And as soon as they ask that question, we're like, yes, 100%, this is going to be perfect. And Keris picked it. Keris picked it because she thinks they're the only charity that's tackling it properly in terms of the UK. And, you know, the NSPCC are fantastic. They do great things. But this charity, they actually go to the root of the issue. They go to the perpetrators. They try to stop it before it gets going, if that makes sense. And it's just something which she's the survivor from it. So if she agreed with it and that's what she wanted us to fundraise for, I will go at it every day until we get there. We raised close to £6,000 now. I'm still hoping to get to 10, fingers crossed. But you know what? You raise the money, but then also the awareness. So I appreciate you name dropping the charity, really, because that's even greater. So people know about the Lucy Faithful Foundation and they can go out there, search it, and fundraise themselves.
Yeah, man. And, you know, the impact that COVID's had on charities, you know, has been massive. You know, you look at a lot of the, you know, money that's getting brought into various charities. I mean, there are virtually thousands, but there's not been these big running events, you know, so a lot of the, you know, fundraising comes from marathons, half marathons and so on. And, you know, I just find it so humbling that you made that decision, that that was your purpose for the joggle. I mean, if you do struggle to get to 10K, you'll have to do the Lajark and start from Land's End, work your way up.
I was well and done with that. There's no chance I'm ever going back to that.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, what were it? Over 100,000 feet of elevation?
Oh, mate.
It was bumpy. It was very bumpy. And the original plan was to just do the mountain days and just do the mountains and not have to run far. But unfortunately, I got a little bit behind where we wanted to be. So with Ben Nevis, I had to run like 28 miles before I got to Ben Nevis. Then I had to go up it and come down it. I was like broken, man. And then Scaffold Pike, I had to run like 24 miles, then go up it and come down it. I ran out of water at the top of Scaffold Pike, which was terrible. I got to Keris and we were supposed to meet in a place called New Dungeon. And I came off the mountain and I was like, yes, I've made it. And I saw a sign for Old Dungeon. So I was like, yes, made it. And then I realized it said New Dungeon. And it was only a mile away, but that mile was just like, my mind just blew because I'd expected to see her there and then. And then when somebody goes, there's an extra mile, it may as well be an extra 100 miles because your head just goes completely, you're knackered, you feel pain, it just comes straight home. And then with Snowdon, I had to do like 30 miles before I even got to the mountain. I had to go up and come down it. It was just, and with Snowdon, my parents are messaging my mum and my dad. My parents are messaging Keris, asking her if I was okay. And it was because somebody had fallen off Crib Goch, the real steep, narrow ridge. They're like, is Rhys okay? And she was like, just check the tracker. If the track is moving, he's fine. If it's stopped, then we'll start worrying. Like the following day on Snowdon, a lady got struck by lightning up there. It was just crazy, man. And it reminded you how dangerous the mountains can be.
What I really love when I was observing, you know, the challenge that you know, took on were the support crew that you had running alongside you. How much of a positive impact did that have on you?
It's fantastic, seriously. Like, some people don't like being joined by people, and I can understand that in a way. But for me, doing these challenges and meeting new people is part of the adventure. And having these people you've never met before, having friends travel the length of the country to come and run 5-10 miles with you, like when it's taking 6 hours to get you, it inspires you. It gives you that bit more fuel to keep going. And if you can surround yourself with these fantastic people, it's great because, again, it's like that support network you can trust in. So if I had people running with me, they could take over the navigation. I could just focus on running a straight line and they guide me. But when they're with me, I don't really say too much. I tend to listen because I like hearing their stories. And because I'm in a state of just trying to stay in that zone and keep moving, to switch off and just hear people talk. And I think one of the most rewarding things is when you get two people run with you. They've never met one another, but you go silent. They know you, but they don't know one another. And then they hit off this, you know, this friendship, this relationship right in front of you. And it happened like 3, 4, 5, 6 times on this trip, whereby these complete strangers are now real good friends and they're communicating it's just because everybody came together for, well, to help in the fight against child abuse.
Yeah, that's good. One thing I always wanted to know, yeah, have you ever had to, like, you know, halfway through the ultra, you got like a niggle or an injury, just had to run through it, like, and what normally goes for you first, like, in your runs, like, what, you know, some people like heels might go, or ankles, old injuries flare up, like, what usually goes for you first, or?
What usually goes for me first? So ever since the Wales Coast Half, I've had a dodgy left ankle, and it popped about 7 days away from the end on the joggle, which was not nice. It was just it just literally immediately, it was like an immediate impact, and I was like, and it like stopped me in my stride, and they had to come and tape it up, and the tape didn't work, and then you went 2 more miles and the tape didn't work, and it was just one of those really horrible days. So usually my ankle tends to go now, but I guess you do strengthening exercise to look after it. But with like challenges like Badwater, which is like a really hot steep mountainous race, I've been knocked out before by cramps. So like I had cramps in my calves, and I could feel them going. You know, you get that like warning shot just before you get cramps. It went warning, and then it went boom, and it like shot up my calf. And I just knocked me clean out, and I woke up on the side of the road thinking I was about to play football, and I'm just like, where's the football? Where's the football? And I like, where's the grass? There's no grass. Oh, it's desert. Oh, it's boiling hot. Oh crap, I'm in the middle of Badwater. Oh crap, I've still got like 80 miles left to go. It's one of those things in your life, like gradually it just got worse and worse and worse. So cramping, that's something I used to suffer from quite badly until I managed to sort of supplement it with the right salts and the right nutrition. Yeah, but I think it's just one of those things. My body's quite strong. I'd be surprised, like, if I've got, there's probably some injury I'm not too sure of at the moment, but we'll see.
I mean, if you do have any coming up, you know, I'm sure you've heard of the magic sponge, haven't you? You know, I always used to see the magic sponge on football pitches. You know, it's tried and tested, so you know, it's a recommendation from me. Just before we move on, Rhys, you know, we could talk about, you know, the joggle all night long. I'm absolutely fascinated, and I'm sure that Rob is. But you know, I'll just hand over to you. What song sums up the Three Peaks joggle for you?
Wow, crikey, mate. So you've got there's quite a few. There's 3 of them actually that stick out. But everybody was joking that it was the Proclaimers. Like I'd walk 500 miles. It was the morning just outside of Ben Nevis. It was me, Keris, and our good friend Chris. And we're driving to the start of the day, and it's really gloomy. It's dark. It's windy. It's raining. And I was like, sod it. I put music on in the car and just put loud music on in the van. And it was the Proclaimers. I'd walk 500 miles. And like we were changing up the lyrics, and like we were all just sort of singing along to it and going back and forth and like doing the hand gestures. And it just, that moment just relaxed me immediately. It was just like, let's get going again. You know, it was just one of those things whereby I'll always remember that moment. I wasn't even running. I was sitting in a van driving to the start of the day. But that song, yeah, yeah, I'd say that.
Thinking about doing an ultra myself here, but I said to you, the furthest I've ever run is only 32 kilometers. But what I wanted to ask someone like you, who's a legend at this, is when would like the good time to do an ultra from someone like me? Would it be after a marathon and then do 50k and then build my way up from that? Or I've heard people not even done a marathon and gone straight into an ultra.
Yeah, that does happen very regularly. And I guess in a way, if you've never run a marathon before, you don't have that mental blocker of a marathon, and therefore you can just go and hit 30 miles and not actually worry about hitting the marathon distance.
Yeah.
Again, you don't have to have gone and run a marathon before going and running an ultra, but you'd have to put training in. And the training comes to like a point where, with ultra running in particular, the way I sort of do things, is time on feet, not really like measuring it by distance. So like, if I know, especially with a joggle, I'm going to be out there 10, 12 hours a day, my training tries to replicate that in terms of like, don't get me wrong, I'm not doing it every day during training, but like there'll be 2 back long days where like that sucks. So I don't think you have to go and run a marathon before you go and run an ultra, definitely. I think it's just something whereby you find your own way into it, and like pick a race which is like something you enjoy, the time of year you enjoy running. Like if you hate winter running and hate going out in the rain and wind, look for a summer race 100%. If you like mountains, find the mountains. If you like the coast, find the coast. If you like flat, go and find a canal. it's just like learning about what you like, what you go strong on, and what you'd likely to enjoy. Because the more you enjoy it, the more likely you are to also finish it. Don't get me wrong, an ultra is going to hurt you. You're going to have to get it. But yeah, I think it's just tailor-made the first ultra to what you enjoy most when it comes to running. And you don't have to run a marathon before you go run an ultra. That would be my opinion anyway.
Nice.
Yeah, and you know, I alluded to it earlier about that seed being planted. And it was like that for me. You know, I did not start running just, you know, off a whim. I saw an advertisement for Manchester Marathon, and I thought, I'm running that. You know, as you probably can tell, you know, I've got a northern accent. Absolutely love Manchester as a city, and I thought, I'm going to run that. So my plan wasn't to head to a park run or do a 1 mile run. It was that I'm going to do Manchester Marathon. You know, so went from being a non-runner to a marathon runner in 4 months, and I just got so absorbed in completing it. And is it anything like that for you, Rhys? You know, when you set out a challenge and plan for it, do you sort of like go from the finish line and work backwards? You know, sort of like reverse engineering a plan?
Yeah, I think you always try and dissect what you've done and what's worked, what hasn't worked. And with the Wales Coastal Path last year, we did a number of fuck-ups, and this year we sort of made those changes and it went a lot more smoother. But yeah, I think something people tend to forget when they do this is they finish a challenge and then, you have to think about what's next, what you want to do. I get that. Everybody has that buzz. Also, just try and take in what you've done. So actually try and like process it. Remember the good times, remember the tough times, and sort of, give yourself a little bit of time to just enjoy it, because you work so hard and not everybody can go from 4 months to running a marathon. I'm just going to say that now. So that's really cool and impressive. But, you know, usually it takes like quite a few years to be able to train up for that. So you should be mega proud of yourself anyway for doing that. But usually it's a long process. And 4 months is quite a while anyway, but it's not the usual amount. You know, imagine when you've worked so hard to get to this goal, this end finish line, you owe it to yourself to be able to sort of process it, enjoy it, and embrace it.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, if you can envision yourself at that final point, you know, you're going to do everything in your power to work through, you know, that turbulence, the fuck ups, as you describe them as. You're going to do anything it takes to work through that. And, you know, with you and the Wales Coastal Path, was it always in your mindset, I'm working towards getting an FKT and I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure that I reach that achievement?
Do you know what? So I guess the way I build the challenge is I'll come up with the idea. If there's a record, then we feel it's possible, we'll attach the record to it. But that is mainly, the main reason for doing that is to give a bigger highlight to the challenge. We raise more money and awareness to it. It's cool to have an FKT, it's cool to have the records. But for me, if it was a trade up every day, the charity would have it all day long. The record could just disappear. So in the case of that, for me, it's always envisaging the finish line. And getting across that finish line and how it'll feel. With the Wales Coastal Path in particular, it was 20 days, something like that. 20 days, 10 hours and like 36 minutes. So I'm trying to think about 2 record times now. So if I mess it up, I'm sorry. But you don't try to focus on it for too long. So like you allow yourself that little glimpse into it each and every day as a little reward, I guess, how it will feel, how the people that will be there, what will it be like crossing the finish line? Will the weather be good? Will you be enjoying it? Will you be in pain? Like, well, for me though, when I got to the end of the Wales Coastal Path, I didn't know what I was going to do until like 10 steps away from the finish line. It was just, I could see Keris there. I always knew I wanted to run up and hug Keris because we've done it together. It was a joint challenge and adventure. But just before I got to the finish line, it was just like, oof, like I got hit by like, it was just animal instinct where I was just hit by that pure adrenaline and joy, and it just went through my body. The only thing I could do was just swing around and punch the air and like grab the flag, and it was just like, I finished it. But it was like, that was not planned. It was just something which just took over my body and went for it. But envisaging it every day and sort of thinking about it, when you get there, it just, the buzz goes even more. Imagine with your marathon as well. Imagine you let yourself look at it, but not for too long, because you have to focus on your training, and sometimes you get too far.
We interrupt this episode for a public service announcement. The Cool Runnings podcast has teamed up with Moxu Fitness for a wicked partnership that will benefit you all. Tell our listeners more, Roberto.
That's right, the CBD Kings. Moxu Fitness started to help everyone who loves running and all forms of movement to train harder and recover smarter. They have a range of products from CBD oils to BCAA and muscle soothing sticks.
We're all about supporting small biz, and we're thankful for Moxu for believing in our products just like we believe in theirs. They have provided us with a 20% discount code for our listeners to take advantage of.
You heard that right. From now until the 10th of September, guys, you can get 20%. Yes, 20% off all your orders by using the code Stay Cool. That's all one word, guys. Stay cool.
That's right. Now we're going to head back to our conversation with Rhys Jenkins.
That marathon, yeah, it's Crazy Ultra 100 in America, and the guy that hosts has got that massive beard. Can't remember the name of it.
His name is Lazarus Lake, and the marathon.
That's it.
So it's not a marathon; it's marathons.
Oh yeah.
They're called the Barkley Marathon.
Barkley, that's it. Yeah.
He only named it Barkley after like his best mate, which is like crazy. I've actually met Lazarus before at the running show, and it was like a real lovely guy. He winked at me and like put his thumb up and whatnot. But that night we were driving to like this dinner, and we're driving down this road. And you ever heard of Dean Karnazes? So if you haven't, he's like the ultra marathon man. He was like the original, he's the guy that did all the books. He's a fantastic guy. Anyway, we're driving to this networking dinner. Bear in mind, this guy is like ran across America. He's done everything, ran thousands of miles. It's like about 100 yards from hotel to the dinner. He managed to get lost in between. And we're driving down the road. I'm like, is that Dean Karnazes? And it was. And I'm like, what the? I was like quite starstruck because I've looked up to this guy for so long. I was like, and we had no room in our car, so I couldn't offer him a lift. And I was like prepared to kick everybody out the car just to give them a lift. Anyway, it starts raining, and you're like, what do I do? This is an awkward situation. And then a taxi pulled up, and the taxi rolls down its window really slowly. And then like the beard pops out and the face is there, and it's Lazarus Lake in the back of the taxi.
No.
The office would be the lift to the networking dinner, and they just sort of disappear off into the night, like Del Boy and Rodney off, the Only Fools and Horses sketch. When and Robin. That's the only thing I can compare it to. And it's a cool guy, put it that way.
If you ever managed to run that, would you ever attempt it if you managed to get in?
So I'm going to try applying this year. So there you go. I've never.
Nice.
I haven't told anyone that apart from you guys now, and
yes.
My wife. So it's something which I'll be trying to apply this year, and it's like a whole secret process to it. You have to figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be trying it. We'll see if I get in.
Nice. I love what Laz Lake does when someone is successful in getting into the Barkley. He sends out a letter, doesn't he? Commiserations. I regrettably tell you that you got a place in the Barkley.
I'd love to.
I love the man. I think he's really eccentric, and when you saw him, was it a proper pinch me moment?
You're finding him at the size of like pulling up in a taxi. I was like, this is crazy as it is, but I actually met him at the actual show itself, and like he was actually being shepherded out of the studio so he could go for a cigarette out the back, basically, because obviously he's a big smoker as well. So I managed to catch him as he was going through the door, which he's a lovely guy. And you know what? He's created some, like the Barclays is the famous one, but if you Google the other races he organizes, man, there's some crazier ones than that. 100%. You have to have a little dig into it. There's one that goes across Tennessee in the middle of summer, self-supported, boiling hot. It's like 300 miles. Have a look. It's cool.
Yeah, wicked. So before we move on, I'm going to ask you for another song nomination. What song gets you absolutely fired up when you're about to head out of the door and go out on a run?
Wow. Oh, that's a good one. What fires me up? So, crikey, man. Do you know what? So yeah, there is a song that does it for me. But there's also something else which does it for me as well. And I'll tell you what does it for me. There's a YouTube video and there's a story about Buster Douglas. Have you ever heard that? Have you ever watched it?
Yeah, the Ballad of Buster Douglas.
Yeah. Have you seen like the whole story though? And the video, it's only like 2 minutes long on YouTube. It's like oh man, that story of why he like got back up and knocked Mike Tyson out is encapsulated in 2 minutes of like this speech and like power. And if you listen to it, oh my God, it just gets my head going straight away, and it just puts the focus back on. And even like halfway through the day, I'd be playing it in my ears over and over again just to keep focus moving forward. But in terms of a song that motivates me really well, wow, now that is a tough question. But like anything to do with like Guns N' Roses, like Sweet Child of Mine, that's got to be like one which gets me going. You're just running down the road, giving it all that, and just sort of enjoying life, and it just snaps you out of the funk straight away.
Yeah, man, we'll give that one a play.
From ultra marathons, are you interested in like, you know, just general marathons, 10Ks, 5Ks, or is it strictly ultras?
It's a good question, man. I just enjoy running as a whole. It's just a case of challenging yourself. And at the moment, yeah, it's ultra running. It could be cycling eventually. I don't know. I'm not a cyclist. I'm always open. I think it's the taste for adventure rather than, you know, I train quite often, or 6 days a week, and you're sometimes running marathons during training. But yeah, there's marathons out there. I'd love to do it. I'd love to do the New York Marathon, sure. I'm not too sold on London. But like, you know, just doing some maybe abstract ones as well. So like over in the Himalayas or something like that would be cool. I'd love to do something at elevation as well. I'd want to test my body to see how I cope with stuff like that. And I think doing a marathon at elevation would be really cool. So I think there's like one in Everest or something. It doesn't go up it, obviously, but I think there's one around base camp or something, which would be cool. Probably really expensive though, and I haven't got that.
And what about park run? Do you do your local park runs, or do you do a bit of tourism?
So I live in Crickhowell, which is in the Brecon Beacons National Park. So we don't really have a park run near us, but no, I've done it previously. I used to live in Cardiff, and there was like one of the UK's biggest ones as well, which is cool. I think with COVID and everything that went on, they all got canned, didn't they, and shelved and everything. So I think it's only like just sort of really drip feeding back into like the community. But I think it's a great way to get started. I also would suggest that just joining a running club, like your local one, just getting out and meeting like-minded people, because you can find people you can go out and run, train with. Sometimes you just don't want to go out the door, and having that commitment to another person will really help as well. It's just something which I'd recommend.
Yeah, I think it's wicked where what you have is your backyarding. You know, we were in Wales last week, just inside the Brecon Beacons, a little town called Llandovery.
Yeah.
You know, which were wicked. So went out on the trails a couple of times myself. You know, absolutely unreal. Unfortunately, I couldn't head to Penyafan because we had 2 kids in tow, and there would be absolutely no chance we'll get them even walking up there or even crawling. You know, what I want to know, mate, is what's your favourite location when it comes to running, where you sort of like in that moment of tranquility, even though you may be experiencing that pain, you're pushing through the limit, where do you find that inner peace when you're out running?
Yeah, I think that's a real good question. Isolation, so being by myself, I think is fantastic to sort of enjoy it and embrace the moment. In terms of I've got 2 locations which jump out immediately, like the Wales Coastal Path, 100%. If anybody ever gets the chance to even just run a section of it, just get out there and see it. Like there was a point just outside Aberystwyth, and I was at the top of the path, and like, it's quite high up, and it's a beautiful sunny day, blue skies, no clouds. And I just I was knackered, completely buggered, and I just sat down on the side and just, And I looked to my right and I can see North Wales. I look to my left and I can see South Wales. I think that you can't really do that in many places. And like to see the full length of the country from that one spot will never, ever leave my mind. It was just fantastic. The other place is Death Valley National Park. I know it's hostile. I know it's boiling hot. But man, there's something which just hooks me each and every time I go there. Like Badwater is a fantastic race. And if you ever get the chance, 100% do it. But the location, yes, it's boiling hot, but the mountains like rip out of the ground. You start from below sea level, you go up and over like 3 mountain ranges, and then you finish like 8,000 feet up the side of a mountain. After you've run like 122 miles, they make you run a half marathon up this steep bloody hill. And you've been in this desert environment for like, what was it, 30, you know, quite a while, 35 hours. And you're going up and you go around these switchbacks, which like you look behind you and you can see where you've come from, and you can see the heat radiating out of Death Valley National Park at the right time. You can see like the trail of lights of other people behind you. You can see people in front of you, and you go around this corner and it just changes completely. You're in this like alpine environment. There's lakes, there's like these running streams, and it's like a real hit to the senses. And it's just absolutely beautiful, man. So yeah, Wales Coast Park and Death Valley National Park, like my two favorite places.
Yeah, and when you look at Badwater and yourself, you're just the complete polar opposite to David Goggins, who's ran Badwater. You know, just such a down to earth and humble guy. Whereas you look at Goggins, and you know, I wouldn't even want to be within 100 meters of him. I'd just be worried what he'd do to me.
I haven't had the pleasure of meeting David yet, but no, yeah, I guess we're polar opposites, but I guess our love for the sport and I guess going further, I have a huge respect for the guy. Yeah, he scares the crap out of me as well.
Yeah, wicked. I just want to thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it. Before we do wrap up, Rhys, you know, do you want to give any shout outs or any kudos to anyone who may be listening?
No, always to my wife. She's fantastic. We're actually expecting our first child right now. And she did the whole 3 Peaks jogger with me, like really heavily pregnant, which not a lot of people know. So to do that is just something I will always be forever grateful for. My friends, my family, my coach, my physio, the people that sort of do all the work in the background to sort of come together to push this one person forward, and like sponsors, everyone like that. It's just crazy how many people actually go into it when you actually write it down in a list. And it's just, I'm blessed with a huge support network. And again, just a big shout out to the Lucy Faithfull Foundation. It's just something which child abuse, sadly, it happens. And the more we can fight against it, I think the better.
Yeah, 100%. We can find you on Instagram at rjenko11. Is that right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And also you're director of Pegasus, which are ultra events as well. Where can people find you guys on the internet?
Well, I'm going to stitch both of you up right now. So if you want to come along and run your first ultra marathon, I will send you 3 spaces just so I get to meet the both of you anyway. We don't have cut-off times. It's something whereby we've eliminated that. So you can take all the time in the world. Just don't pitch up a tent, please. Yeah, if you want it, the offer's there for both of you, okay? I'd love to see you go further than 32K. And obviously, you need to go, come on. You've done the marathon now, so what's next for you, really? For Pegasus, though, you gave me an opportunity then to pitch it, and I didn't. PegasusUltraRunning.com is where you can find us. We're on Instagram and Facebook, and yeah, they're cool events. We're an open bunch. We're pretty friendly. And yeah, you two have got to come along now.
Yeah, man. I've got, you know, a lot of unfinished business, so I had to pull out of Race to the King, you know, just last month. Unfortunately, got a slip disc, so, you know, training's gone wayward, but, you know, I'd definitely take you up on that challenge, and it'd be great to exchange high fives.
100%.
Nice one.
Okay, Rhys, so just going to wrap up now. Just going to ask you for one more song nomination. What one song gets repeatedly played on your playlist?
Oh man, there's 2 songs. I'm going to be greedy now. So The Greatest Showman, man, this is me. Have you ever heard that song? It's just like fantastic. It gives me that range of emotion, which for running is fantastic. I love it. It strikes the chord with where I've come from, the people I've surrounded with. I just absolutely love that song. That gets played over and over again. And then on the 3 Peaks joggle, we had 5 Keep On Moving, that song.
Oh, yeah.
I was running down the road, like giving it like get on up when you're down, take a good look around. Like I had all the dance moves nailed down 100%. So that's a song which a lot of people saw me dancing along to as I was running the length of the UK. So yeah, man, those 2 songs get over and over again.
Wicked. So we'll finish off with those 2 songs, and we'll probably not get any more listeners after this episode, but I used to know pretty much every dance move to every 5 video. Used to watch them.
Yes.
I knew I loved you. Yes.
Yeah. Right, Rhys. So thank you very much for your time. Really humbled. You take care of yourself, man.
Legend. What a legend, man. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, guys.
That's all for this episode of Cool Runnings. We hope you enjoyed the conversation and it's filled you with good vibes.
All right, everyone. If you enjoyed what we're doing, please spread the word. Let us know on Instagram. You can find us at Cool Runnings Pod. I repeat, at Cool Runnings Pod. We'd love to hear all your feedback.
We also want to thank you, listeners, for tuning in. Keep up to date on future episodes by following the podcast on Spotify, and we will see you next time.
Also, a massive thank you to Max Co for our intro and outro music, guys. Until next time, peace out.